どうぞ。かなり進んでこちらがダイニングになります。前回ご要望いただき伊藤さん、伊藤さん、斉藤さん、よろしいですか。ではリビングへ。今フローリングを伊藤さん、伊藤さん、斉藤さん。すみません。あなた大丈夫？
アシストしてくれんすよ。吉田さん、こっち。このパンツのことでしょうか。ベルトとパンツが一体になっていて、腰を使う作業をアシストしてくれるんです。評判なんですよ。これ借りていい？立ち上がれるんです。さすが総務部長。働く人を腰からアシスト。緑安全。
Even more perplexed than before, Medrash narrowed his eyes. How do you know I'm a paladin? Because like speaks to like. You might feel it too, if not for your preconceptions. But here's the point. I won't press you or any of these others to embrace our beliefs. If they come to Bahamut, let it be in their own time and for their own reasons. I want you because Clan Dardendrian has a reputation for valor, and so do the dwarves of East Rift. And because you have horses. They're in sad shape now, but it's nothing feed, rest, and a little magic won't cure. And I need outriders. We intended to head east, said Balazar, to report our experiences to the Lance Defenders. Perfect, Nala said. That's the way we're headed. Now that we've tested ourselves in a couple of battles, we're going where the giants are thickest. I'd like to discuss this with my comrades, Medrash said. Would you excuse us for a moment? A scowl flickered across Nala's face, but Patron said, by all means. Medrash led his clan brothers and Kjorn several paces away from the Bahamut worshippers and the cart. What do you all think? He asked. I'll do whatever you and Sir Balazar want, said an umber-scaled Dardendrian warrior. But can it be honorable to fight alongside dragon lovers? It might be more honorable than slinking home with nothing in particular, and hostile magic in general. He activated tattoos with similar functions. There, that might help. Now yank the kobold off the beast's back. Jet poised his talons and swooped. The kobold twisted and it spewed more flame, and a shock ripped through him. For an instant, he couldn't see, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Torm, he croaked, and a cool surge of vitality restored him. It didn't heal all his burns and blisters, or quite take away the pain, but it turned it from something that hindered him into a source of righteous fury. And fortunately, it did so quickly enough for him to dodge when the fire belcher tried to catch him in its fangs. He spun aside, and the triangular teeth clashed shut on empty air. He cut. His blade split scaly hide and grated on the bone beneath. The lizard thing kept coming. And coming. As the fight progressed, he channeled Torm's power repeatedly, using it to augment his natural might and to smite the brute with attacks that cut both flesh and spirit, until he simply couldn't draw down anymore. Still, the creature wouldn't stop, and soon, heart pounding, breath rasping in his throat, he felt his physical might flagging, as certainly as his mystical talents had. Then Balazar and Kjorn rushed in on the fire belcher's flank. Midrash's clan brother spat frost at the creature. The dwarf chopped it with its Urgrosh. The lizard spun in the direction of the attack, taking the pressure off Medrash for what felt like the first time in days. He wanted to retreat and catch his breath. He snarled Torm's name and swung his sword instead. Do you want us to back off? Balazar panted. You seem so keen to kill giants all by yourself. You can have a piece of this thing, Medrash answered. That's very generous. As the three of them fought on, circling in an effort to stay away from the fire belcher's jaws, Medrash caught glimpses of the rest of the battle. Giants and dragonborn slashed, battered, and stabbed at one another. Piles and pits of ash churned as the adept tried to summon more reinforcements. But no more creatures burst or clambered into view, probably because Nala stood chanting with her shadowwood staff, sketching S-curves in the air. Patron stood protectively before her, his sword uplifted to kill whatever threatened her. Light shone through the red blood on the blade like sunbeams through stained glass. Evidently, Nala's counter-magic was holding the shaman's power in check. That was useful, but Medrash couldn't help wishing she'd started a little sooner. Because even with 3 warriors hacking at it, the fire belcher still wouldn't drop. Suddenly, it heaved itself around in an arc, spewing fire as it spun. The jet washed over all 3 of them, but Balazar caught the worst of it, reeled, and fell. The fire belcher lunged at him. Medrash and Kjorn scrambled to intercept the beast and, striking furiously, held it back. Risking a glance over his shoulder, Medrash saw Balazar coughing and stirring feebly. He was trying to get up, but couldn't manage it. We have to end this, growled Kjorn, voice tight with the pain of his burns. Can you keep its attention on you for a few moments? Yes. Medrash hurled himself at the lizard. He struck and dodged repeatedly, evading the snapping, fiery fangs by inches, unable to retreat more than a step or two lest he leave Balazar exposed. Then suddenly, Kjorn appeared on the beast's humped back. Medrash realized he must have run up its tail. And he was still running, while avoiding the spikes jutting at intervals from the fire belcher's spine. The lizard lunged at Medrash. Kjorn staggered and appeared on the brink of losing his balance, but then somehow recovered. He scrambled onward, grabbed one of the creature's horns, and used it to anchor himself in place while he jabbed and scraped at its eye. The fire belcher lashed its head back and forth, trying to shake Kjorn off. Most dragonborn would have lost their grips and gone flying, or else had their arms jerked out of their sockets. But the dwarf, though bounced from side to side, kept himself steady enough to go on fishing for an eye. With everything shaking, he wasn't able to gouge one out, but while he kept the fire belcher preoccupied, Medrash rushed in and thrust his sword point deep into the hollow where its neck jointed its body. The red lizard froze, then shuddered. Seeming to topple with a dreamlike slowness, it flopped over onto its side. Kjorn jumped clear and landed with a clink of mail. Help Balazar, gasped the dwarf. I'll keep watch. Medrash dropped to his knees beside his clan brother. Please, Torm, he thought, grant me just a little more of your grace. He rested his hand on Balazar's shoulder, then felt power flow through the point of contact. New scales covered raw, seeping burns. That looks better, Kjorn said, his voice sounding from behind Medrash's back. If he could stand there and talk, it must mean the fire belcher really was dead, and that no other threats were advancing on them. Balazar grinned up at the dwarf. That was a good trick, he wheezed. Were you a rope walker in a carnival to keep your balance like that? I'm a dwarf, Kjorn answered. We have low centers of gravity. Even with an invasion looming, Jesus couldn't completely neglect the mundane business of the barony. On market day, that meant he had to sit in judgment on his dais in Whistler's Square. It wasn't a permanent platform. Workers set it up in the morning and dismantled it again in the evening, and in recent years, it had started to creak and quiver at odd moments. Jesus tried to stop wondering if and when it might actually collapse, and at what cost to him in dignity and bruises. Tried to focus instead on the 2 peasants squabbling over where one's farm ended and the other's began. It was an effort, because he despised boundary disputes. In the wake of the spell plague and the changes it wrought, his great-grandfather had ordered the fief surveyed. That should have settled every conceivable conflict in advance. Yet somehow, the glib and the greedy still found arguments to challenge the placement of markers, hedgerows, and fences. "The stones have always marked the line," said the farmer, nervously twitching a soft, broad-brimmed hat in his hands. "You dug them up and moved them," said the plaintiff, an old fellow seemingly bedizened with every religious